Lavi. Namaste.
Namaste. Hi.
How are you, Han?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. So, hello. Would you like to
Hello.
introduce yourself to our followers?
Yes, and thank you for your patience. Please forgive me. Um, yes, my name is Zahra Al Jabri. I'm a spiritual relationship coach. I support women 30 and older who are looking, have wanted to get married, who are trying to get into that loving relationship, and they haven't been able to yet.
Wonderful, wonderful. And where do you live?
I live in Southern California, Calabasas.
Oh my goodness, so we're kind of close.
Oh, where are
Nice.
you?
I'm actually in between Beverly Hills and the Valley. So we kind of at the moment is here, but it could be there. So I was just telling everyone before you came that this past couple of months has been so much happening for me. And it's just like very overwhelming. But we all know that the universe, the divine, knows that we're ready for all of these tough lessons to take. It's kind of a crash course, taking crash course time. And we should just surrender to it and say, I'm ready, throw whatever, the famous saying, don't wish for life to be easier, but learn how to be stronger. Tap into your inner power and know that you can handle any challenge. So let's dive into it, Zara. Let's dive in. The topic today is marriage should not be. Did you pick this topic?
Yes, I just was talking about this topic on my page, and I think your assistant really liked it.
Yes. Okay. So would you like to start?
Yeah, marriage should not be something that you have to endure, right? Correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Here, so the place to start is this kind of unspoken society norm that has portrayed marriage as something that's in particular, well, for both sides, it is going to be a challenge, right? For men, like, oh, now you're strapped with your old ball and chain, you can't go out, you can't do anything, you got to ask the wife, right? It's seen as like, oh man, she's like limiting you, she's holding you back, she's holding you down, she's nagging you, she's demanding, she's needy, she wants all these things, she's stressing you out because you need to make more money to be able to afford all the things she wants. And then from on the woman's side, it's like, oh, you're going to have basically like a man child that you're going to have to take care of, that you're going to be, his nurse, you're going to be his mother, you're going to be his therapist, you're going to be, his cook, his maid. You're just like, a servant. And so really, and we see this played out right in like sitcoms and in the movies and even, romantic comedies and all of those things. It still has these undertones that we don't appreciate subconsciously, can be making us feel like, oh, like we're told the fairy tale, get and fall in love, meet your soulmate, it's going to be wonderful, you'll travel together, you'll be so in love, you'll have someone to snuggle with, someone to be with. So we're told all these wonderful fantasies and it's described so beautifully, but then when it's portrayed in the media and it's actually portrayed as like really kind of frustrating and annoying and like, oh God, there's my idiot husband doing that silly thing, or he's out with the boys again and I'm stuck at home with the kids and all of that stuff. And so subconsciously, we don't want that. Like nobody wants to have like to just, a guy living with a girl totally nagging him and a girl just having another person to be responsible for. So if we don't want that, we are going to look for ways to avoid getting into a relationship if that's what we subconsciously think that it really is. And then on top of society doing that, we also see that it and feels like it's really true. We see with our parents and our aunts and uncles and our friends, like, oh, they actually are experiencing that like their husband is controlling, and that when, you know, the husband is complaining about his wife is stressing him out. He had a heart attack from all the stress. And so we see it in real life too. So our subconscious mind is like, this is not going to be good for us, right? Like maybe I'm single and I feel lonely and this, but like I have some fun, I have some freedom, and you're going to come and take away the small amount of joy that I have already. Like I'm trying to grow my joy, not trying to shrink it. And so they end up sabotaging because of this idea that marriage is going to be something I'm going to have to endure. And really that's not at all what marriage is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Yeah, so the past couple of weeks, I did a lot of lives about ending the romantic relationships and the sufferings and the grievings after that. And what do you think? Like, because I was talking about this, I said, you know, previously the marriage was all about survival. It was about support. It was about family, you know, having kids and growing your family and all that. But today it has changed. It has changed to a way that our expectations are much higher. Today, when I'm choosing a partner, is just not for financial support. Mm-hmm. Today, when I'm choosing a partner, I want him to be my soulmate, or better yet, as I think, twin flame. I want him to be the spiritual guru. I want him to be the psychiatrist. I want him to be a nutritionist. I want him to be the best father. I want him to be the best blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. I even gave the example of work. I said previously, we would get a job to make money. Mm-hmm. Or most of us, we just followed what our parents did. Mm-hmm. Today is not just about job. Today, my job has a meaning. Mm-hmm. It has to be like meaningful. It has to be feeding my soul. I have to grow and evolve. Zaradan, I'm so sorry, honey, but I'm getting it back. The sound is coming back. Can you wear like AirPod or something?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, I love what you have to say.
Yes.
And how I think about that is that we've become more individualistic, right? It's clear in the Western society, it's an individualistic society, but it's permeating throughout the whole world. And so when you're in an individualistic society, that means you're responsible to take care of your own self and, you know, handle and meet all your needs yourself. Mm-hmm. And then for many people in the West, their two biggest components in their life is their work and their partner and their family. And so now, instead of before, where we lived in communities where you would have lots of friends and the grandparents to give you advice and be your therapist, and lots of friends to give you companionship, and lots of people in the community to give you support, you know, with cooking or cleaning or whatever, like relieving financial pressure that you could go over to a friend's house to eat or whatever it was. Now, we don't have that vast network of community that we're all together. It takes a village to raise a child. It's like, nope, you're on your own by yourself. So now my job can't just be some, you know, people used to just chop wood or, you know, whatever they used to do, be a wood chopper, be a coalsmith, be these simple careers that they're not expecting meaning from. This is just something I do, and because people need it and they pay me. But now, because there's no community, my job also has to give me meaning and also has to give me these benefits, and my relationship has to give me all of these things. So we put so much pressure on our work and our relationship because we have no other place to get those things anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So basically, what I think about the marriage is that there is such a huge gap in between. Some people have stayed still into a traditional marriages, that the husband goes to work and the wife, you stay home and you have to raise children and that stuff. And then on the other side, we see that today we have their marriage has changed so much that it's like sometimes it's just a matter of the husband stays at home, sometimes the wife is making more money, and as I see of a lot of time that the wife is making more money, so the husband decide to stay home and raise the children. And sometimes we see that it's not that tight bonding, because right now is somehow like um, getting up the success ladder is much more important, that the family has lost its value. Now we're
Mm.
in the point that if the wife can make money in New York City and the husband is staying in Las Vegas, it's like, okay, she's going to go to New York to make more money. So is that separation? So I think it's a huge gap from the traditional viewpoint of marriage and raising family and children and where we are here right now. So do you think that's a part of, like, if this huge gap has something to do with why today we are having so much problem? Like the Western side, we don't understand when someone, like, my background is Persian and so many coaching sessions that I'm doing, when I don't even have to ask, why did you marry this person? It's because they didn't have a choice. So, in the traditional way, the husband was chosen for you,
Mm.
regardless if you like them or not, or if you were compatible. I'm talking about in the last couple of weeks when I was talking about breakups, something that I point out, it was like, we always think love is so important. We prioritize love. We have to have love in our relationship right now these days. But I said so often we kind of ignore the compatibility. Am I
Mm.
compatible with this person? Because look at it, I fell in love and then I thought, okay, we put the rules and the restrictions and the boundaries and all of this stuff. But until we come under one roof, we didn't really know that we are not compatible in many, many ways. And look at it, if my lifestyle is so different than that's an issue. Love cannot overcome that. If you're so much into politics and I don't even want to touch politics, or if I'm an early rise person, I wake up at 4 a.m and I go to bed around 8:30 or max 9 a.m. If my partner is a nighter, he likes to enjoy himself and relax till 12 or 1 p.m. and I'm sleeping, and then I get up in the morning early and he wakes up and he gets cranky and I get cranky because he comes to bed late and he wakes me up. If our lifestyle is not compatible, it's going to create some issues, and there is no way that it can last no matter how much we love each other. So I was telling my followers, I say, don't think love is everything. It's not. It has to be compatibility. You have to be compatible with the person. Not that, but being compatible, that doesn't mean that you have to like the same food, or you have to like drinking wine, or you have to like the same thing. I don't mean that. But in lifestyle, if the lifestyle is different and we're not compatible in that way, that can create a lot of issues. So today we are in a place that somehow we're thinking that the culture tells us you have to be happy. And we all think, yes, I have to be happy, but we don't take responsibilities that if I'm under this assumption that I have to be happy, then I'm the one I'm the one who's responsible for my happiness. I think another part where a couple goes wrong is that I'm under assumption, yes, I have to be happy. And, they blowed us with self-love, and which is so cliche. I talked about that too. Self-love became so much thought about that it's a cliche on its own. But anyhow, I'm kind of missing that I am the one who's responsible for my happiness. But we're under assumption that I have to be happy and you have to make me happy. That's where we go wrong. So we are constantly expecting someone else to make me happy. And if they're acting or behaving the way that I don't approve or I don't like it, that creates unhappiness and suffering to me. And then I start pointing finger, you make me suffer. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes. You brought up two really important points there. The first thing you mentioned was about compatibility and like really understanding how can I know I'm compatible with someone before I start living with them. And then the second point of like, yes, expectations, expecting that someone will make you happy or can make you happy and you're not taking any responsibility for yourself. And both of those things are critical to have a great marriage, right? If you're not compatible and if you have the wrong expectations, those two things are going to quickly erode at your relationship and cause friction or, you guys to separate.
Mm-hmm.
And so my husband and I actually wrote a book called Before I Do, and it has over 150 questions for couples to ask each other before they get married to establish compatibility. But it's even more than just the questions. In the beginning of the book, we guide couples through how to think about marriage, to understand what their expectations are, to first think for themselves what their expectations are, and then how they're going to have these conversations to hear what, their potential, the prospect that they're talking to, what their expectations are, so that you can be really clear about what your expectations are, that it's, I may expect a certain lifestyle or certain things that we do, that we visit my family, 3 times a year or this and that. You may expect those things, but to understand like that there may be things that we do and things that we have, but that's separate from happiness. Happiness is my responsibility. So we go into great length in this book, and I'll send you a copy. It's called Before I Do. And it really is getting into underneath that compatibility question, because of course, there are possibly some things that will arise after you get into a relationship and start living with someone that you'll uncover and be like, oh my God, I didn't know. But there's so much that you can find out before marriage, right? Assuming both people are having the intention of like being in a committed relationship and wanting to figure things out. There's so much that you can establish, that you can figure out, that can help you determine that you're compatible, because nobody wants to be miserable consciously choosing it. And so if you can go through a process that's going to help you understand, like, you know what, you seem really nice and you seem really great, but this, the way you live and the way I want to live is not going to end up working out. And so we have to walk away. We have to just, before we get even more involved or have even more feelings, we have to walk away. And so that's what we guide people through in our book.
So give us, I know you said it's 100 and something, that's wonderful, but give us a few that you think are really crucial to pay attention to before we say, I do.
Yes. Okay, so we have 17 different categories of questions. The most important category is, or the most important and the first category we suggest everyone start with is intentions. And so a question in that section could be like, what is your definition of marriage? What is your timeline that you're looking for to get married? how do you view your parents' relationship, right? We have categories on finances, career, social life, intimacy, all of these things. So other important questions can be, oh my gosh, I've been reading and rereading the book so much that it's funny that now I'm blanking. But other important questions are around, you know, career, right? Like, how important is your job to you? How late do you stay at work? You know, that getting into like, what's your schedule, your nighttime, daytime routine? Like, you know, how much would you how will you adjust your schedule once we get married, right? That you know that now I have a partner that I'm going to, you know, need to be spending some time with. So it's questions that are open-ended. They allow room for discussion. There's no right or wrong. And it's really to prompt people to go a bit deeper, to get someone, to know someone beyond the surface. Because what we've seen, and I'm sure you've seen it too, is people will say, I'm talking to someone and I've learned so much about them and I like them. But the talking that they're doing is just kind of mostly sharing life updates. This is what happened to me. This is what I like. I'd love to travel here. I'd like to go there. You know, this is my job and I want to have a different job after. And it just stays at the surface. And then, you know, they could get engaged and then they could break up and they were like, I'm so devastated. We're broke up. But so many times they'll be like, we broke up over an issue, but we talked about it. And like, okay, but you clearly didn't talk about it to resolve it or come to an agreement or come to a conclusion, because you broke up about it. So whatever type of talking you think you're doing is not the talking that's really establishing compatibility. Because when it came down to be like, can I make this commitment? Are we going to get married? It was like, oh no, I can't. We're incompatible now. And people get so overwhelmed or frustrated, but I thought we talked about it. And it's like, no, you didn't. You didn't talk about it in a meaningful way.
Something that I just came up, it was like eye-opening for me. It was huge because I have been into spiritual path for many, many years. And I assume that I have done a lot of work. But what I find out is, because I have done all this work on myself, and I think I'm ready for a deep connection in a relationship, it doesn't mean the other person is there too. And that was when I got the aha moment, because I thought it's just me. I have done all this work and I can handle anything. But then when I got into a relationship, it was like, oh, the other person is not willing to cooperate with me. So that was like, it doesn't matter. I wanted to say that again because it was a big lesson for me, that because I have done so much work and this or that or whatever, partnership is about two people. And if the other person is not willing to, so let me give you an example. Like, I'm the kind that who stays very calm and cool and very concerned and all this stuff. And when an issue shows up, I would like to, you know, speak very calmly, even though I'm fired up and I want to kill that person, but I can really hold my calm and talk into a nice voice, not to accuse anyone, you know, not to say, point finger at him and say, you did it or you're the problem. I often start with, what do you think? This is my lens. This is the way I saw this situation. What do you think? And I put it very gently. But then again, I realized that if the other person is introvert and is not willing, they haven't learned to show their emotions, or if they haven't learned to be expressive, I can't get a damn thing from them. And this is something that I see. It's, you know, is kind of, again, it comes to the personality type, the way we are. Okay, I'm very warm and friendly and I'm a very free spirit. I can just talk about things that people are like, shh, how could you say that stuff? You know, I don't have any shame or something. I'm a free spirit. I just say what it comes to me or how I feel or whatever. But if the other person is, like I said, is not willing, they haven't learned that is safe for them to feel, number one, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not, they're not, they don't have the ability to express how they feel, because this is a two major part, right? One part is from our childhood, every time we get hit or we get wounded or whatever, we learn somehow that is not safe for me to feel. So we shut down the feeling body. The other part is, even though I overcome this part, it doesn't mean that I have the capability to be expressive, to make the feeling, because the energy, the feeling is a energy feeling in the body, the emotions, but talking is a different energy, is by feeling this and being able to bring it into words. It's very important. And if someone else is not lacking of in any of this thing, you can never solve the issue, you know. And the other thing is, like, we have to understand that, I know we cannot say, or men are like this or women are like that, but because I work a lot with people who have been heartbroken, and they get a session with me when they're in a stage of grieving, not being able to accept the fact that the other person left them. I do major thing here. But we also have to understand that men and women are behaving, thinking, feeling, acting, reacting differently. So when a guy is like made up his mind, that is done, I don't want to be with you, it's not because what happened at that moment. Because oftentimes as women, because we run this case over and over and over and over in our head, and
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes I'm thinking, oh, if I wasn't saying that, if I wouldn't have do that, we get hooked on what happens here. We think the guy is telling us, I'm sorry, I'm done with this, or the female is saying, I'm sorry, you're not my type, or you're not my person, or whatever. We think it's about the argument that just took place here. We don't realize that before I say, no longer, I'm not going to stay with you any longer, that process has took days and months and this stuff. But we didn't really make up our decision, or we didn't have the courage to do it, or we were kind of blocked and hooked in our, gaps or whatever we had, that we elongated. So this doesn't mean that if I'm breaking up with you, or if she or he breaking up with me, it doesn't mean it's because of what happened right now, the fight or the argument here. Stop analyzing all that, because that person checked out long time ago. And because
Mm-hmm.
we haven't learned to be really mindful, oftentimes we don't really get it that somebody has checked out, left the relationship way back, but we just happen to be still continuing being in a relationship. So for men, it's easier to come and say, sorry, it's not working out for me, or I'm not feeling it anymore, I'm done. As women, the way we behave is that we want to find a solution, or we want to compromise, and we want to fix it. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like, the guy is like, listen, I just figured out we're not let's talk about it. Where do you think we're not compatible? And the guy is like, da, 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 da. I can change. I can change it. I can do this and I can do that. And this is, I think, as women, where we go wrong. That once somebody said, I'm done, don't try to fix it. Let it go. And I know it's very hard for us to do that.
Yeah, well, I think part of what makes it hard is that um, for women, a, a relationship is seen as as an achievement. It's something that you can mark off, right? Like, are you single, married, engaged, in a relationship, right? In a relationship is a better mark than being single. So if there's anything that's now coming to threaten being in a relationship, it's not even that like, oh no, I really love this guy and I want to stay with him. Maybe the other person is also feeling like, yeah, it's true, this is really difficult, I don't really like this. But because it's an achievement, if now I can't check that box anymore, it's a failure, and I don't want to look like I failed. Like, why did you guys break up? And
Right.
usually the society's narrative of any breakup is something's wrong with the woman, right?
Good
That's
point.
the story. Something's
Mhm.
wrong with the woman. So it's going to look like something's wrong with me. It's going to look like I failed. If I already have, however many breakups in my past, it's going to look bad on me. So it doesn't even, for women, we may not even appreciate that our need to, like, how can I fix it? How can I change? I can be different, is not because I actually want to be with this person. It's just because I don't want to be seen as a failure. I don't want to look like I failed in this relationship. I want to look like I succeeded. And if that means that I have to be something different, do things I don't like, I'm going to do them, because having that achievement, having that check mark is better than actually being happy with how I'm living my life. Until they do all those changes and they're like, I'm miserable now, I do want to leave, like, I don't care that I will be, single. Is much better for me to be single and happy than to be staying in this relationship with you where I had to change all of these things about me, to get you to stay, or to get this to work, or for us to be a thing. And so
Mhm.
for women to really, really let go of the idea that it's an achievement. It's not an achievement. It's not something, it's not a medal we get to put on our shelf and a badge like, yes, I'm in a relationship. Like, there's no difference, right? We want to, in our own minds, know that we are still valuable, worthy, significant, important, desirable, whatever our relationship status. It has no bearing. Like, our amazingness is that we are amazing regardless of whether we have a man or don't, or have a partner or a relationship or don't.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's so true. And you had a really good point that you said, we look at, it doesn't matter, not just for marriage, having a boyfriend or a girlfriend. Um, so it's an achievement in one way. And you said, if we not able to keep the relationship, it comes as a failure. And that's really great, because you have to think about it. You haven't, if your relationship breaks up, you haven't failed, because what we're looking at this point, Zara, is that we're just looking at the breakup. It ended, and we look at it as a failure.
Mm-hmm.
But if we look at how far have we come throughout the relationship, if I'm very temperamental, and for majority of time I worked on myself enough not to throw tantrum, or to be reactive, or to do this or that. Or if you're in a relationship, because sometimes I see that people, I mean, during the session, someone who has been married for 40 years
Mm-hmm.
and then they get a divorce, and it's just, especially for women, is so heavy, the fact that we build our entire lives together, and it's very hurtful. And I get it, but what I do at this time during my session, I said, look at how much you have overcome. Look at how many things you have done. You build a house together. You have children. You gave birth to 2 or 3 kids. You have done this. Your kids, you take care of your kids. You sent them to school. You sent them to college. You did this or you did that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's the
Mm-hmm.
way the mind look at something. And I'm just saying, if we learn to switch this, from the failure to how much we have accomplished, it doesn't mean any longer that I failed. And sometimes I said, okay, you have lived together for 40 years and you have built all of this thing. But then again, when we look at our ego is all about attachment. Ego never likes to lose anything. Ego never likes to, separate or change anything. I said, you have lived one life for 40 years this way. Don't you want to try something else? Do you want to have one experience for your entire, but honestly, this is what I always think. Like when people tell me they have been 40 years or 58 years or 60 years, that's a long time. And I'm thinking, oh my God, by the time I was like not even 40, I have gone through so many relationships. How could you just, be with someone for all these years, So when I bring this to their attention, I said, look, I have been single, although I've been through few long relationships, but I have been living single most of my life. And I said, look, I have experienced that and I experienced this. The problem is I really enjoy being single. I really enjoy being, I'm really good with myself. I really prefer somebody not push my buttons, so it's my comfort zone being single. But I said, I have tried both. So you have tried marriage. What would you think would feel like to have a different life, being single now, experience how it is, that you get to do anything that you want. You can go to sleep when you want, you can wake up when you want, you can eat whatever you want, you can travel, you can do this. I said, how about if we create a different life? How about if we, no matter how old I am, I'm going to try all those things that I always thought I wanted to do, whether it's dance class, learning a new language, or traveling, seeing a different culture. But for years, I was raising the kids, and then there was job, and it was, how about if I try this, And that gives people a different perspective. And that lifts up that heaviness that, oh my God, I failed and I lost. I'm saying you haven't lost anything. You experience a lifetime, be it marriage. Now you have an opportunity to experience being single.
Yes. I mean, that goes exactly in line with the title, right? Of marriage shouldn't be something you have to endure. If you've reached a point where you're like just being married because I've been married for 30 years, so now I'm going to stay married for another 10 years, even though we don't talk, we don't do anything. They go to their room, I go to my room, like we just living separate lives like roommates. Well, that's not the point of marriage, right? So better off to be single, because there's benefit in both. There's benefit in being single, there's benefit in being married. And so if you're single, what you want to do is be looking for the benefit and be maximizing those benefits. What are all of the wonderful, great features and opportunities and possibilities that you have as a single person? And do that. If you're single and you hate it and you wish you were in a relationship, then you're not benefiting from being single. Same thing, if you're married, what are all the benefits and things you can appreciate, the possibilities and opportunities, and maximize those and do those, because there's things you can do as a couple that you can't do as a single person. There's ways that you can achieve, that you can grow, right? Like you said, like, I don't want someone to push my buttons. There's ways that you can push each other's buttons that will help you heal, that will polish you off, that will improve your character, that will help you rise in a way that being single you can avoid doing, you don't have to do. So in each, there's pros and cons of each. And what you're trying to do is whatever state you're in, regardless of whether it's by choice or by circumstance, right? You're single, but you want to be married. Even if you're single and you don't want to be single, still try to be in the position of like, how can I benefit from this state that I'm currently in as I have my eye towards going to a different state? And same thing for a married person. If you're married and you're like, we're not compatible, this isn't the right fit. How can you find, the benefits of that until and when you make that decision, you know what, I am going to leave, and you exit, right? But the point is to try, if you're in that state, what is all the good that you can find? Because the main thing is, the human mind and our psyche, we can turn anything into suffering. We can suffer. I suffer because I'm single. I suffer because I'm married. I suffer because I don't have children. I suffer because I have children. I suffer because I have such a stressful job. I suffer because I lost my job. Anything we can suffer. I'm suffering because I'm so rich, and people are asking me, I suffer because I'm so poor. Whatever it is, we can suffer. So you have to find, how can I be in the state that I'm in and not suffer? Can I turn it into something that, you know what, I'm going to find the good. Whatever good is in here, I'm going to find it. Because when you can do that in your current state, that means when you get to the next state, you'll be able to do it. Because if you're suffering when you're single, you're unhappy, and it's just you, it does not mean, as you know, think, when I get married, it's going to make me happy. Oh no, honey. Yeah. Oh no, honey, your suffering self is going to be a suffering partner. And you're just going to suffer in the relationship. So when you can prove to your own self, I can find the good and benefit in whatever state I'm in, then whatever happens, a pandemic hits, a fire, a this, a that, you can find the good in any new circumstance and not have to suffer.
That was another great point and tip you said, Zara. Yeah, oftentimes when people are single, they're not trying to, first of all, I always felt that the only time that I feel alone or lonely, because that's a major part where we're so urging for experiencing soulmate, twin flames, or being in a relationship, is that void or that emptiness. And instead of us working on that and trying to fulfill ourselves, to see is only the ego mind that's separating me from the divine, is that I'm feeling incomplete, not being whole. Because I'm not working on that, I kind of feel that, I need someone else to come and complete me, to make me feel whole, or to kind of take away this loneliness, or someone else comes and heal my wounds, which was my responsibility in the first place that I didn't work on. So that was a really great point. And I just want to put more emphasis on it, that you're absolutely right. If you're single and you're living alone, and you feel like you don't know what to do with yourself, and you're lost, and you're feeling lonely and whatever, don't assume that finding a boyfriend or marriage is the solution. Because relationship is, as I always call it, I said relationship, oh God, is where you have to practice everything that you have learned so far. So don't get fooled that if you're not okay with yourself, and I told you, Zara, I done work on myself for years, and I thought I'm so I can handle anything, I can do this and that. But then I realized no, because right now there is two of you, there are two polarity that are pulling into different directions. And I'm just picturing, because I'm so visual, when you see yourself, if you're up in the air and two people from two different directions pulling your legs away, and you really don't have any more room to stretch, the pain that comes there, this is the fact. So really be realistic and at least do some work on your own. Try to give yourself whatever you're looking to find in a relationship or being with someone else, because most probably the universe is going to disappoint you and going to keep telling you, honey, you got to give that to yourself first.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that point again about spiritual compatibility, that you've done so much self-reflection, deep work in this area, and then if you're meeting someone who's not willing to do that same work, they don't have that self-awareness, they're not, reflecting back on like, okay, why did this trigger me? Why am I pulling away or whatever? It's really hard because you're at one level and they're at another level and you are incompatible. So spiritual compatibility is important. It's not that if you have done a lot of work that you'll be able to handle any type of person. It actually makes you even more sensitive to the people who are not willing to do the work, because you know how much richer your experience of life is when you at least expose the ego, right? We can't move beyond the ego and we can't address all of its things, but at least when we expose, like, oh, I've got this ego, that's why I'm like so like, I see. And if you have another person who's like, no, this is just the way I am, it's because this is how I grew up, it's because the economy is like this, it's because we have this president, and they're not willing and can't or don't appreciate that, like, it's them. There's a part that's just them. It can be really hard. And so to allow ourselves to be like, okay, I'm on one journey and you're on another journey, and this is not the moment for us to meet up. And that's the other piece, is that it could come back around, right? It could be that person does some work, does some healing, and then the relationship comes back around. And we tend to think that, like, things are so permanent and so final, like, oh, we're not compatible, so they're not the one, and I'll never. And you never know. Maybe a year later, they will be the one. And it'll come back around. You don't have to, like, make it be more definite than it is. It could just be that honoring yourself. You know what? I'm really, like, working on my awareness in this way. I can see that this is a challenge for you, and this is not going to work for me, and I'm going to honor myself and step away from it now, with love and light and peace and whatever, or with an argument and a fight, whatever. But you can keep in the back of your mind, like, especially if they had so many qualities that you did like, a person can keep in the back of their mind, like, okay, it's possible that they could come back around.
Mm-hmm. And if they come back around, it's going to be aware that it's another time, which is not going to be easier, but because you ask for a second chance, it actually could be even harder and tougher. Keep that in mind.
Keep that in mind.
I already know this person so well. This time we messed it up last time. It's going to be perfect.
Yes, and you want to really check in that they actually have changed. And so to do that, right, I'm not telling people to, like, just go back with a bad ex. I'm saying that, like, if they come back around and you can see that they are talking, moving, operating, they have something about them in the real world, in this 3D world, has changed to let you know that they actually are different, then that's a coming back around. But if they're just in the same game, that's not what I mean. that's just still leave them alone.
And that's a really good point. Don't listen to what people tell you. Don't get fooled if someone comes back for a second round or for the third round and they said, I have really changed. Don't get fooled by that. Always look at people's action, see, and give it time. Really absorb them and see, because when we have this bond or karmic ties or whatever we want to call it, we split up and some time has passed and we suffer and we miss each other and we come back. It doesn't mean that any change has take place in my personality or in their personality, because behaviors are built up over years of time. So if somebody comes back, the ex comes back and say, I really have changed, don't get fooled and listen to what they said. Give it time and see it shows up with their actions, because, like they say, you cannot change the old dog. What is that expression?
Yeah, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
It's the same thing. It's the same old dog. Don't get fooled that is going to come back and say, oh, yeah, I have changed. It's very hard to, break up our habits and behaviors and all that.
Yes.
Thank you,
yes.
guys. Zara, thank you so much for being with me. It was a pleasure. And hopefully we do more join live together. I really enjoyed having you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our discussion. And just so everyone knows, my page is at Practical Muslim. I am a relationship coach, and this is what I do to support women to change their mindset from a spiritual and mental place so that they can get into that great relationship. And I have several coaching programs. I have my book, and I share a ton of free resources on Instagram and YouTube.
Beautiful. Good luck with your work, and we see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.